All right. Oh my gosh, my voice. All right. We are live. Today we're going to be talking about Christian Matson, who has been called brother in his diocese when he's actually a woman. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But before we do, I want to promote something that I'm doing. If you could come to the YouTube channel in the community tab, I have a question that I put up here, which is: as Catholics, which memes do you which meme do you identify with the most? And so for this, I have Orthodox tease, embrace the suffering, a know-it-all, or really grateful for confession. So that's just a shamelessly advertising my YouTube channel, in which this is being done. So, but let's there's one more thing I want to advertise, and that is also what's called Late Night Levity. That is a group of us guys come together and we talk about things that are similar to this meme question, that bring us joy, maybe make fun of things, but very much tease out the fun in our daily life as Catholics, and being sincere about it, not being cheesy. But yeah, so if I'll be live streaming that later today on YouTube and X, so look out for that. All right, so to the topic at hand, we have Christian Matson, also known as Cole Matson, and that's important. Came out as transgender this last weekend during Pentecost. So it's kind of a big deal because Pentecost is not really, like, I don't know how it happened, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they're looking for correlation in some manner, but yes. The important thing here is that this has caused a bit of scandal across at least Twitter. But we have articles like this from Catholic Vote. There was what looked to be the initial article from Religion News Service. I don't know how credible they are, but it's cited here in Catholic Vote. Catholic Vote is obviously a Catholic news site. But let's go through some of the article points. The Diocese of Lexington Communicates Director Edward Bauer told Catholic Vote that the diocese has no further comment on the story, and later added that the Religion News Service article speaks for itself. So the Diocese of Lexington is saying that this article speaks for itself. Okay, and that's pretty important because this article, the entire time, refers to Christian Matson as brother. He uses all the pronouns that our culture would want them to use. And whereas this one is really emphasizing the point that Kentucky Diocese uses male pronouns for biological female in statement on transgender hermeneutic. Now, this may seem like I'm like beating a dead horse with this, because, a lot of people have talked about this in varying ways. We have like, what is a woman? But this is like with the church. Okay. And so with the church, there's a different aspect that comes to light because we're not supposed to be doing this. And this comes 2 months after this. The declaration, what is it called? I don't want to lose my place where I found it. But they said 2 months after the Dicastery of the Doctrine of Faith published Dignitas Infida on human dignity. So like, I mean, you can have qualms with the names, and infinite dignity, right? Like, you can have critiques of that, but what it does specify, as the article says, is that the declaration criticizes gender ideology from intending to deny the greatest possible difference that exists between living beings, which is their sexual difference. And that this foundational difference is not only the greatest imaginable difference, but it is also the most beautiful and most powerful of them. So, and that's where you get into the complementary aspect, and the two flesh become one. Like there's a lot of things that follow from that. And so there's, excuse me, this is a really important component of our theology. And so The Declaration also addressed sex change, stating the body anticipates or participates in that dignity as it is endowed with personal meaning, particularly in its sexed condition. It is in the body that each person recognizes himself or herself as generated by others, our parents, and in it through their bodies that men and women can establish a loving relationship capable of generating other persons. So it's a pretty profound thing that we're talking about. And anybody who plays this down, like, you got to question. I mean, there is the question of, like, why are you playing this down? Like, why do we have someone who's called brother, but is a biological female by a bishop or a diocese? Like, that's a huge problem. And why did, in terms of the time frame, 2 months after the declaration from the declarative statement from the dicastery. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of problems with this. All right, so moving on. Teaching about the need to respect the natural order of the human person, Pope Francis affirmed that creation is prior to us and must be received as a gift. Right. So before you were, I knew you, or like I just really messing that verse up, but you know what I mean. At the same time, we are called to protect our humanity, and this means, in the first place, accepting it and respecting it as it was created. The declaration continues, it follows that any sex change intervention, as a rule, risks threatening the unique dignity the person has received from the moment of conception. And so that's a pretty big statement, right? Like, in light of our culture. And there's a huge clause here, and that clause is basically, if there are abnormalities that cause confusion, that is not the same as a person who knows knows what sex they are and then chooses to move away from it. Okay, so like that is a wholly different thing. And so that also typically happens when the child is young and the parents are talking to the doctors about like how the genitals look. And so like that's the case there. So I also wanted to go into the declaration itself, because I think it's really important, especially with sex change, because from the understanding is that this Christian did in fact have a sex change. So I do think that's important, but I'm going to read the previous statement under gender theory, because I also think in its entirety is very important. In this sense, respect for both one's own body and that of others is crucial in light of the proliferation of claims to new rights advanced by gender theory. This ideology envisages, oh my gosh, I'm screwing that word up, but it's right there. A society without sexual differences, thereby eliminating the anthropological basis of the family. It thus becomes unacceptable that some ideologies of this sort, which seek to respond to what are at times understandable aspirations, manage to assert themselves as absolute and unquestionable, even dictating how children should be raised. It needs to be emphasized that biological sex and the socio-cultural role of sex, known as gender, can be distinguished but not separated. Therefore, all attempts to obscure reference to the ineliminable, oh my gosh, I'm just screwing it. Sorry, sexual difference between man and woman are to be rejected. We cannot separate the masculine and the feminine from God's work of creation, which is prior to all our decisions and experiences, and where biological elements exist which are impossible to ignore. Only by acknowledging and accepting this difference in oh my gosh, I'm just screwing up today with all these words. Sorry, that word, reciprocal, but in a different way. Sorry. It's just, okay. Can each person fully discover themselves, their dignity, and their identity? All right. So besides the fact that I just butchered 3 words in there, which my wife will probably make fun of, that's a pretty big thing. Okay. Respecting not only yourself, but others' sex and their gender, which is an expression of their sex, not to be separated from their sex. And so a sex change, we'll just want to This is official church teaching. So if YouTube is like getting all, I don't know, iffy about this, it's a clarification that this is our religious beliefs. So like, don't take my video down. So the dignity of the body cannot be considered inferior to that of the person as such. The Catechism of the Catholic Church expressly invites us to recognize that the human body shares in the dignity of the image of God. Such a truth deserves to be remembered, especially when it comes to sex change, for humans are inseparably composed of both body and soul. In this, the body serves as the living context in which the interiority of the soul unfolds and manifests itself, as it also does through the network of human relationships. Body. Okay, yeah. Constituting the person's being. The soul and the body both participate in the dignity that characterizes every human. Moreover, the body participates in the dignity as it is endowed with personal meanings, particularly in its sexed condition. It is in the body that each person recognizes himself or herself as generated by others, and it is through their bodies that men and women can establish a loving relationship capable of generating other persons. Teaching about the need to respect the natural order of the human person, Pope Francis affirmed that the creation is prior to us and must be received as a gift. At the same time, we are called to protect our humanity, and this means, in the first place, accepting it and respecting it as it was created. It follows that any sex change intervention, as a rule, risks threatening the unique dignity the person has received from the moment of conception. This is not to exclude the possibility that a person with genital abnormalities that are already evident at birth or that develop later may choose to receive the assistance of healthcare professionals to resolve these abnormalities. However, in this case, such a medical procedure would not constitute a sex change in the sense intended here. So this is, that last part was what was in the article, but the whole thing is really important because you need, like, the context of what we're talking about, I think, is lost to a lot of people because we don't talk about human dignity in that way, right? Like we think in a lot of cases, human dignity is treated in a way where it's your will, and I can't superimpose myself in your will because then I'll be screwing up your freedom of will by calling you the correct pronoun, and that will somehow undermine your dignity. Whereas, like, the opposite is true, right? Like, respecting someone's pronouns when those pronouns are not what they are, on a especially on a scale of a news broadcast like this, it does not uphold someone's dignity. It creates a problem. Like, you're promoting the opposite of dignity in that case, because you're promoting an understanding that is the opposite of what the church teaches on how we are to look at ourselves and respect ourselves. And so I also like, so this is very important. So, like, I have 5 kids, and I am very aware of, like, what's going on in the world. It's one of the reasons why our kids go to private school. They do not go to public school. That's why we promote, like, my wife and I personally promote private school or homeschooling, because the public school pushes this stuff, just like in here, that it's how children should be raised. Like, it recognizes this. And this has been, honestly, like, this is great to see in a document like this, because as a parent, we've been asking for this. This is what we've been calling for. And now the bishops need to act on it. And this isn't acting on it. Like, this individual person does not need to be broadcasted like this to promote, like, because, like, what's going to happen when something like this hits the ears of people who are not Catholic, right? If they're Protestant and they want to, like, become more traditional and are leaning towards Catholicism, this may actually push them away. If their parents trying to look for guidance and they're not as rigorous in their understanding or in their ability to be diligent in in researching their catechesis. Like they're not able to self-teach well, or because they haven't been given the tools to do so. When they see this, what message do you think they get? Like it's not a good one. And it definitely goes against what this is pushing. I'm sorry, this isn't pushing, this is clarifying. And so, you know, the fact that this came out 2 months after this clarification, like this seems to be celebrated. And that is fundamentally a problem. And like, you know, I have no like ill will against Christian Matson, but I will not be calling him or her. See, I did it because I read the article before this, and so it totally screwed me up. Because, but like, I will not be calling her brother, because that's not respectful of her dignity as a woman, and it doesn't reflect what this is. And again, like it's one thing if on an individual basis where you're dealing in a personal case and you're trying to navigate the best you can. I'm not saying like you use those pronouns or you don't use those pronouns outright, but an individual case is different than blasting a case to the public where responses are necessitated if they go against what the Catholic Church has declared in an official capacity. Like, it just doesn't make any sense why this would come out and be like, oh, well, I'm not pushing an agenda, I'm just coming out as myself. And it's like, well, I don't know about that, because like 2 months ago, the church said something, and like, you're making news, and the bishop is making news. And so like, there are serious concerns here that any rational layperson would come to the conclusion of, well, they seem to be pushing something. You know, I don't know Bishop John Stowe. I don't know him. I don't know if he's how he has been historically. I just know that from this, if you're going to push someone and use pronouns and titles like brother that go against what the church has stated, you're actively separating the sex that this person is. You know, that seems very problematic. And, you know, I'm not someone who can, you know, I'm not going to go off and say, well, he's a heretic or not. That's not my position. I'm not in that position. Okay. I'm not going to pretend I am in that position. That is for his fellow bishops and his, the Pope to say, okay. I am not going to say that, but what it does do is it causes scandal. It absolutely causes scandal, because, like I said, if you don't know better and you see this, you're going to get the wrong impression. And so let's see, John Schmidt. Yeah. A person who didn't want to push an agenda wouldn't put it over the news. Yeah. That's like, why post it? Like even from the angle of like, oh, well, we're helping those that, you know, within the ranks of the church are transgender. And it's like, the problem is that we're at a time where promoting such a thing, like, without going into a great amount of nuance, even in a very neutral sense, that is incredibly imprudent, because the society is going to pick that up and run with it. And like, that's that's incredibly problematic for any of those parents that are just trying to find a clarification on the issue, because they're going to read sources, and the sources are going to berate them with the opposite of what the church has come out with. Like, the church came out with this, and for about a few days, like, you know, it was kind of a big deal, right? Like, it was in a lot of mainstream media. They talked about this. A lot of people on the more liberal end, with a more liberal understanding of the church, has stated in you know, that they did not like this part, and then it just died out, and then now like something like this happens, and there's clarifications that come out that, all right, well, we are going, they do use he, and they do call her a brother, and so that's that's a problem. So that being said, all of that being said, okay, I also noticed this, because Christian also goes by Cole, and so this is from The Journey Home, and so The Journey Home, as many of you probably know, is a very respectable show, and in this case, like someone who, like, there wasn't the clarification, so I'm going to give a bunch of caveats, because some people have been putting this down, that they should have known better or not, and that's not always obvious. All right, so like, you got to give the benefit of the doubt to the people who have who do shows like this, or who promote people coming into the church like this. They're not going to ask every single question you want them to, right? I did not watch the program itself, so I don't know if they even talked about any of this, but the simple fact that it was Cole Matson was, or Christian Matson, or Matson, I don't, the name now I don't know how to refer to. Simply because she was on the show does not mean that they were trying to undermine the church teaching or whatever. This happened in 2015, January 12th. And so it's something to point out, because I've seen some people really like push down on The Journey Home. And I'm going to be quite frank with you. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt until I see the episode, because like they do their best, and they have people from all over doing, what they can to show how they come back into the church, or how they come into the church. And this may not have been something they've known. And so, if you happen to look at my thumbnail, let's see if I can post my thumbnail. So the reason why I'm pointing this out is, so thank you everybody who's joining me on X and YouTube. I really appreciate it. 52 is really high. I've not had that many, so I appreciate you guys joining in. So this is the thumbnail I have for the video. I have Adam and Eve, Saints Adam and Eve, and I have transordination in the Catholic Church. So this is a video Father Eric and I did 2 years ago, and we talk about this exact situation. And yeah, it's not before 2015. And I actually believe the sex transition of Matson was around 2010. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's what was in this report in Religious News Service, or Religious News Service. Yeah. But yeah, we talked about this. We talked about the fact that seminarians are probably going to have to get checked in some way, like with their doctor, obviously, or something. There should be some preventative measures to get seminarians into, to check for seminarians. And this is really important, because you don't want to, be married by someone pretending to be a dude, but got a collar. Like, that's a real big problem, because the first video Father Eric and I did was on Father Wood, who in the Archdiocese of Detroit was not validly baptized, and then went on to become a priest. And then when he reviewed a video of when he was baptized, they had said the wrong things. And so literally all of his sacraments that he had received, he didn't actually receive. Not only that, all the sacraments he didn't actually happen. I mean, within reason, because I don't know, I don't remember how they did baptism. But all the others, like for wedding, confirmation, Like, there's a lot of problems with that. And so the Archdiocese, in due to justice, I'm giving you like a huge like summary of that video, because we do go into the nuances, and Father Eric goes into a lot of the details that I'm missing right now, but goes off and helps, like, the Archdiocese is trying to help get those, have those people who got a false sacrament a real sacrament. And so, and why that was important. So please watch that video. It was a lot of people have enjoyed it and have learned from it. And again, I'm just giving a summary. But in a similar token, if a woman is quote unquote ordained, they're not actually ordained. They don't have sacraments that they can do. And now you have a problem where that's happening perpetually, where we don't know about it. They know about it. Like the women who are pretending to be the men know about it. And, if some people would be like, well, why would they do that? I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why they would do that. I mean, like, if you want to, like, for all of the theories around, like, why, like, certain things happen in the church, some of it goes to pointing to how infiltrators happened or happened to come into the church. Like, you don't think that would happen today? Like, it's not an unreasonable thing. We see this in other, well, not in other denominations, because we're not a denomination, but in denominations of Christianity, we see this where women get in places of power and they actualize it to the benefit of the culture. And so that's a real problem, because we cannot have the priesthood, we cannot have deacons be taken advantage of in that way. That needs to be protected, because that's where the sacraments are dispensed at the lowest level, right? Like, not the deacon, but the priest. And so, John, I'm not going to post that up there, but that is hilarious. Sorry, John just put something in the chat. So, that is hilariously, like, sad. But yeah, so I just wanted to, like, emphasize, like, yeah, I did call it with Father Eric, but this is something we have to address, and this is something we have to address now if we haven't been addressing it since now. Because when I talked to him, he's friends with the seminary and the seminary director in the Archdiocese of Detroit. They already have things in place, and we talk about that during the video. There's already things in place. He doesn't go into all the specifics, obviously, but it is an important detail, and it's something that we need to, as a church as a whole, take seriously. Not promote news stories like this, because that promotes the complete opposite of what our church has declared quite recently. And in the Archdiocese of Detroit, just prior to this, Archbishop Vigneron actually put out a similar thing about understanding the difference between gender, sex, and gender theory, and made a lot of the same points. And so I'm very thankful to have an archbishop that was willing to do that prior to the declaration. But I'm also very thankful for the declaration, because now we do have something definitive that we can point to that isn't just, well, he made a male and female from the Bible. Yeah, absolutely. It is nightmare level. But yeah, so I guess that's it for me. I wanted to just have this, like, short little 30 minutes of talking about this, because as a father, I'm very concerned about our church promoting points like this with very little nuance. And I think it's very imprudent. And, I hope that those that see such articles, such points, I hope that those that see such articles like this, see articles like this that clarify, because that is very, very important, that we don't fall into what the culture is pushing down on us right now. So thank you for joining me for lunch. Again, please join us later for late night levity. That'll happen, I think, around 8:30 tonight. Sorry, I'll throw up the time somewhere on X. But again, thank you very much for joining me, and enjoy the rest of your day.